All right, Gina, thank you. We begin with new details now on a massive controversial recall by General Motors.
Beginning today, GM will begin repairing millions of vehicles to fix a faulty ignition switch.
The problem has been tied to at least 13 deaths already, and also questions about why the recall wasn't issued sooner had Congress grilling the company's CEO last week.
Eyewitness News reporter Andrew Adams is joining us live in studio this morning with more on what GM owners need to know.
Well, Daniel and Patrick, this isn't something that affects just a handful of General Motors drivers. We're talking about 2.6 million vehicle recalls here. Now a storm of controversy is brewing over why this recall wasn't made earlier. The recall announced 2 months ago surrounds a faulty ignition switch. That switch can shut off a car and turn off safety features if it gets bumped out of place. Dealers will be putting in replacement ignition switches free of charge as part of that recall. The problem is a reported GM memo shows the company signed off on that new switch all the way back in 2006, but the part number was never changed. Now federal investigators and Capitol leaders are wondering why the cars continue to be out on the roads the past 9 years, despite safety concerns. Massachusetts Senator Ed Markey had this to say during hearings on Capitol Hill last week.
We now know that the difference between this switch and one that would have worked was the difference between life and death.
Okay, take a look at the screen here to see which vehicles are affected. This applies to models years 2003 to 07. Chevrolet Cobalt and HHR, Pontiac G5 and Solstice, and the Saturn Ion and Sky. Now it's important to note that even though General Motors no longer produces the Pontiac or Saturn brands, you can still bring those cars to any GM dealership. If you do own one of these vehicles, you're asked to call your dealership and ask if they can set up an appointment for you. GM says the repair should only take about 30 minutes. Coming up, we are going to hear from the GM CEO on this recall. For now, though, live in the studio, Andrew Adamson, Eyewitness News.